Welcome to the Take a Mulligan podcast with your hosts, Brian and Kenny Mulligan. We hope to encourage you not to quit and keep going. If you're at that place where you just want to stop and give up, don't. Second chances can happen. Try again and take a mulligan.
Hey, welcome back to our next episode. We're so glad you could join us. We just want to remind you that we will be launching new episodes on the first and third Tuesdays of every month. So hopefully you guys can check that out and be subscribing and follow and get the reminders that we'll be having those new episodes. So thanks for joining us for a new episode today.
Yeah, it's great to have you with us. And today I wanted to ask my brother Brian here. He's obviously he's into physical therapy, he has his own practice. And I thought I'd ask him some questions about that because a lot of times people think of physical therapy of when they injure themselves, right, Brian? I mean, that's
probably the most common. Yeah.
Okay. But you take, and I know I've called you on occasions and we'll come back to that a little later, but I also know like there's chiropractor care out there. And I know people who they go to chiropractor every week and, they get realigned and yet physical therapy is different. So why don't we just start out by saying, well, what is the core differences between a chiropractic care and physical therapy?
Okay. Good. Yeah. Good question. And a lot of people do ask me that. I get lots of patients in here that are being treated by chiropractors, along with coming in to see me. I have some that have treated with chiropractic for many, many years and never tried therapy. So it's kind of all over the place. But it is kind of one of those things that a lot of people get us confused. I've had lots of people over the years that call me a chiropractor, and I'm not, because I think they do get those two worlds a little confused. So I guess I'll kind of give the broad description or differences between it. So we have different schools of education. That's the main thing. And I think the bigger thing is that we have a little bit of different philosophy on how we go about the practice. So we are trained as physical therapists to pretty much treat from head to toe. Chiropractors are trained mostly to go, from the spine out. So their main focus is on what's happening in the spine. There's a lot of different types of chiropractors out there and what they do and how they treat beyond that. For physical therapy, for the most part, I mean, besides specialty areas, we are pretty much treating everything from head to toe. Our focus a lot is on the prevention and the patient having the knowledge and basis of what they can use to continue with helping their situation. So when they come to us, we educate them a lot on what their condition is. We educate them on different exercises and stretches and then run them through a routine of things for however many weeks it takes to get them back on track. And then our main goal is to then have them just continue on their own, and hopefully they're doing better and they have a home exercise to work on or whatever else they're going to do in a gym or whatever else they're planning to do post physical therapy treatment. And then they can continue on their own, and hopefully they're doing well. In the chiropractic model, a lot of times it's a lot about maintenance, and they want to have them come in, frequently on a regular basis, because I think the philosophy there, again, I'm not trying to say I know everything about chiropractic because we are two different worlds here, but just general basis here, that they're going to have more of a maintenance with them. So they want the patients to come in to see them on a regular basis, because if they don't see them, they're thinking that they're going to be out of alignment and therefore have issues. So they want to see them as more preventative measure. Usually there's not a whole lot of home exercise that go with the patient. There's not usually a whole lot of things for the patient to do on their own at home, from what I understand. And I get a lot of feedback from patients that go to chiropractors, and I'll ask questions, what are they doing with you? What's going on? So that's kind of in a nutshell, a general difference that we have. We do focus a lot on the stretching component of things and how the muscles operate on the spine and the bones and the joints. And we're not looking at just moving the bones. We're looking at stretching everything out around it so it has a bigger impact. The chiropractors are mostly looking at, addressing the joint issues and manipulating the joints to be able to put them back in alignment, with not a whole lot of emphasis on the stretching component of it. And again, some are very different. Some are much more hands-on. Some are much less hands-on. So that's kind of a hard world, I think, for us as PTs to understand, because it does seem like a changing world in the chiropractic world.
Okay. And obviously some are more, some go well beyond just chiropractic care too. So they might have more of the physical therapy involved in it.
Yeah, what's interesting with their schooling is they definitely get schooled on The marketing aspect of things, because, I pretty much every chiropractor is a self practitioner. They're on
Okay.
their own. They don't work in hospital settings. They don't work in schools. They don't work in other settings that PTs can. So they all get trained a lot on how to market themselves to open up their own business. As PTs, we don't get a whole lot of that education. So that's a bigger difference too. And then a lot of times, because they're looking to market different things, they'll dive much more into alternative medicines and nutrition and all kinds of other aspects of things that we as PTs aren't generally trained or learn how to do. We have to kind of do it on our own if we choose to go that way.
Okay. I know, even myself are running into people where they injured their back or they twisted their neck or something out, and they're like, "Oh my goodness, got to go to the chiropractor, get readjusted," kind of thing. And I get that aspect of it. I know something I've always appreciated about working with you over the years is that, like, I know if something's out of alignment, that's fine. But if I don't fix the things that cause it to go out of alignment or strengthen the things around that to go out of alignment, it's going to happen again, whether it's 2 weeks or 2 months from now, right? And that's pretty much
Yeah.
where you go with. Yeah.
Yeah, because again, there's always something causing something. Sometimes it's harder to figure out than others, and then in those cases, if we really don't know what's causing the problem, then we still treat the problem. So if it's a loss of strength or a loss of, range of motion of a joint or an area, and we don't know exactly what it is causing there, whether they've had an MRI or not had an MRI or not had any diagnostic stuff that's really revealed the actual problem in there, we're still going to work through and say, okay, well, we know we need to get your strength back and your mobility back. So we're going to work to do that regardless of what is actually in there. And a lot of times, we'll have good results. And then at the end of the day, it almost doesn't matter what was there because everything feels better now. So if something was like more damaged in there, like, in the knee, if it was a meniscus or in a shoulder, if it was a, tendonitis, if those are the causative factors that created the problem and the person's feeling better, not that it doesn't matter what was in there, but the fact that they're better is really the main goal. So if we never found out that they actually had a mild meniscus tear in their knee, but their knee works fine, doesn't have any problem with it, a lot of people can go on with their life with a condition like that and never have any problems. Other people need more therapy, or other people need more surgery to actually have that fixed. And then we just rehab through that part.
Okay. But a lot of this goes back to the we all need to be stretching, right? And
Yeah.
we all need to be strengthening our muscles, because the more stronger our muscles are around things, our joints and everything else will be much more stronger, correct?
Yeah. And a good example of that is people that have arthritis. It's not, the arthritis isn't going to go away, whether it's a knee, a shoulder, a wrist, hip. The arthritis is not going anywhere. So the problem there is the cause is there, and the cause doesn't have a solution unless it's a joint replacement in some cases, depending on the joint. In the spine, they would do, sometimes fusions or other, procedures back there to help with that arthritic condition. But ultimately, if somebody chooses not to have the surgery done, which a lot of patients I have don't want to have that. So all we're really working with in those situations is exactly that. We're trying to regain or restore all the mobility of the joints, and then trying to regain and restore any strength of the muscles around those joints to protect it and provide support for that injured joint, because that's about all you can do if there's no other solution to that problem. So in a lot of cases, post-surgical, or even, again, just a mild injury that didn't need surgery, most people run into the same problem. They're losing strength, they're losing mobility, and they're having pain. And then those are the areas that we're trying to help manage to ultimately get people back to functioning with what they want to do.
And the reason I appreciate like what you do is because I think, I use myself as an example. So I had the carpal tunnel surgery done, and I had both wrists done a few years back. And I remember coming out of that, and the doctor never prescribed physical therapy. So it wasn't like, okay, you should do this. And I knew better. And so I come to you and say, Brian, what should I do? So, you gave me some exercises and stuff like that. But I also realized, just coming out of that, doing some of the exercises, I remember I went back for my 3 or 4 week checkup or whatever, 6 week checkup or something. And my fingers were still swollen, and they still ached at times, usually waking up in the middle, waking up in the morning. And I remember the doctor saying, well, it's probably the onset of arthritis, and this is probably something you're just going to have to learn to live with. And I remember thinking, okay, our mom had arthritis, and I get that. But I was like, no, I'm way too young to be like, this is just how it's going to be. And I'm amazed. And here it is, probably 3 years later, where I finally have what I feel like mobility back to where it was before the surgery and stuff like that. So I'm a firm believer in physical therapy because I just know the more you move, the more you're using your muscles and stuff like that around, the better your shape your body's going to be in, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I had done a talk recently at a senior center on just, physical therapy, what, how you access it, why it's necessary, what it would help with. And that was one of the things I was talking about, is that we're just wired to be moving people. There's too many moving parts. There's too many moving things going on through our body between, nerve impulses and blood flow and muscles moving. And we're not meant to stand still or be stagnant. So, the people that are moving are doing much better. When you have a hard time moving because you're having an injury or something else that stops you from moving, then your body suffers. And, as we're aging, of course, I'm noticing more and more that the stretching is a very important piece of what we should incorporate into our daily routine. So that's something that's becoming a lot more eye-opening. And you look around, and now what do we have out there now is a new thing, is these stretch labs and these different places that, people want to go get stretched, and people pay money for it. They're
I
just like, they'll
know.
get a massage, they'll go get stretched. And
That's the
so
funny part.
unfortunately, we as PTs missed that market, because we would probably be the best people to do that, because, that's what we do every day. So, yeah, stretching is a big component. And again, I've been trying to incorporate that much more into explaining that to my patients. I mean, I've always been doing it, but as I'm getting older, recognizing the need for it myself and trying to incorporate that into a regular routine for myself more often. Understanding that aspect, like we talked about in an earlier episode, you're young, you think nothing's going to happen. You're fit, you can stretch, you don't have to worry about getting stiff in the morning or feeling tightness or any of that kind of stuff. But that does change as we get older. So we can't stop the clock, but we can at least do some stuff to help prevent some things.
Yeah. Well, hey, maybe it's not too late. You could start your stretch classes
Yeah,
in the
no, I'm planning on
evenings,
it.
couple
I'm
times a
planning on
week.
it.
I think that'd be really cool. Who knows how big that would get, you know? Now you started, so you used to work in a hospital setting, like an rehab center,
Yeah,
correct?
inpatient rehab. Yep.
And then we had talked about your challenges getting into your career to begin with, but
hmm
then you decided to start your own practice. So, like, what was going through your head to start your own practice? I mean, that's just mind-boggling for some people, you know?
Yeah, it's funny, because I remember when I was, I guess I was probably, we were just about to have our first kid. And so I was young 20s, mid 20s. And I remember a couple from our church had invited me and my wife and friends of ours to their shore house for the weekend. And I just remember hanging out with these people, very nice people. We didn't really know them that well, but they were very nice to hang out with for the weekend. And I remember asking him what he did. We were talking about, our careers and jobs and stuff. And I just asked him what he did. And he said, I'm an entrepreneur. And that was all he said. And I kind of didn't really know much. I'm like, oh, entrepreneur, what really is that? And so then I think I found out later on that he ran a couple different businesses or something like that. But that's what he told me he did. Like, he didn't say, oh, I'm a salesman or I do something else. I'm an entrepreneur. So I thought that was very unique and interesting, and that kind of stuck with me. And I never really thought of myself as that ever. Didn't really know the term very much either. So when it came to me, starting to think about opening my own practice, I never considered myself an entrepreneur. I just thought, oh, I just want to start my own practice. So the whole thought of my own practice really came probably back when I was in grad school for PT. We, I guess it was in the back of my mind at some point, thinking, oh, it'd be kind of neat to own my own thing sometime, and have my own practice. I loved working at the rehab I was at. I worked all through college and grad school there, and then went back to work there full time. So I had a lot of good contacts there. Was there a long time, and really loved it there. But I always thought about how neat it would be to have my own thing and do things the way I would want to do them. And in college, in grad school, we had a project during one of our semesters where we basically had to go through the nuts and bolts of how would you start your own business?
Okay.
Would you got to go through all the aspects of things. It was a group project. But I remember as we were going through that, and I kind of had these, wild ideas for this fitness center we developed, and it was all PT run, and it was going to be, focused on PT, but it was a gym, and it was just a cool concept. And that kind of sparked a lot in my mind. And I thought, wow, that'd be really neat to be able to do something like that. And I think from there, it kind of started, it kind of stuck in my head of like, well, maybe I should start something on my own at some point. And, the fear kicks in. It's like, nah, I can't really do that. How am I going to do that? I don't have enough money to start a business. And how am I going to do that? How am I going to get patients and all those kinds of things? So it kind of stuck with me. And then the biggest revelation was when I left the rehab center full time, was there a long time, and then got this other opportunity to work for another small practice who had hired me. And while I was working there and just didn't really like it there at all, and was just a really bad experience, but it was a great experience because I learned a lot. I learned a lot about what I could and couldn't do, or should and shouldn't do, and thought, you know what, I can do this. So I started doing some research there, and that's when it really clicked. And then I ended up leaving that job after about a year and said, let's do this. Let's try this and see how it goes.
So what was your main goal? Because obviously it's funny. I think sometimes we learn what we want to do and how to do it by being in a negative or a people who have bad approaches, and we're like, oh man, I don't want to do it like that. And so we sort of learn how to do things better, or we have a desire to do it better. So what was the main goal that you saw? Like, okay, I want to open my own practice, not to have your own, not just to have your own thing, but because I want to do this different. What was that different?
Yeah, so like you said, I think a lot of it was looking at, okay, this experience was bad and I don't want to do it that way. I know I could do it better. But then I leaned back on, all the experiences and all the knowledge I gained working in the rehab center I was at. And that was just, I mean, it was the amount of information and stuff I learned there was just incredible, because it was an environment that is just so much easier to learn. And I think it made me a better therapist as a result. The people I worked with were wonderful. I had a lot of good mentors there, and so it was a lot of good experiences there. So I think I kind of drew off of that, and that was really kind of the hub of what I ended up doing as far as my own private practice. So a lot of outpatient offices are very orthopedically driven, and they're going to see all the orthopedic surgeries and all those things. Mine came from more of a rehab background, which is a very different type of setup. And I had a lot of experience in home care as well. So I think when I came to my own practice, I was trying to incorporate all of that to make it a different practice. It wasn't just, I'm going to see the knee surgeries and the ACL repairs and the rotator cuff repairs, and, we're going to work with athletes like a lot of, outpatient orthopedic offices do. So mine, I was trying to kind of incorporate more of the rehab-minded background. So I really enjoyed working with neurological patients, strokes and MS, and I did a lot of that. I worked in brain injury for a while. So I had a lot of that experience, and I really enjoyed working with those type of patients. So in my mind, what I thought was what could set me apart was, let me go after, more of the neurological world and that rehab type of world just in an outpatient office. Now, a lot of rehab centers and, the hospitals will have outpatient offices in their location as well. And they kind of have a similar mindset because that's the environment they're in. But I was trying to set that apart a little bit and work with more of the neurological conditions and stuff. So I definitely have, gained some of those, but I definitely do a lot of orthopedic type stuff. But the rehab mindset, I think, was the biggest thing I was trying to take with me, was to say, okay, let's is not just, here's the 6 exercises this person needs for their knee, surgery, or for their shoulder surgery, but to really kind of dive in a little bit bigger and look at that mindset of what we had in rehab. In rehab, our whole main goal was to get these people home functioning. We knew that they still needed strength. We knew they still needed range of motion and more therapy. But our main focus was to get them home safely, make sure they can go up their steps, get in and out of their bathroom, all those different aspects of daily life. That was our main focus. So for me, I kind of kept that idea in mind as I see patients now when I'm asking them. And a lot of times they still can't go up the steps well enough or often enough, or they still have a hard time, doing a certain household chore because, something's bothering them. So I really try to incorporate that a lot. So I guess going back to your question of, I guess the main thing of what kind of set me apart, or what I was trying to set apart, I think was really focusing a lot on the individual aspect. And, that's the main focus. And I know there's other practices out there that see, very few patients so they can have more one-on-one time. But that was the big thing that I looked at when I first opened, was I thought, I don't want to, I've worked in places where I have 5-6 patients an hour. I don't want that. It's not good for me. It's not good for the patients.
Mm-hmm.
So that was really the primary thing that I walked into. And I thought, can I set up a model where I'm only seeing 2 patients an hour and I can really devote the time to those 2 people? They're getting enough. I'm not overdoing it, and getting burned out. And could it be beneficial for both of us? So that's the model I set up. So as I've gotten busier, I've still been able to maintain that schedule. And that's what I'm going to plan to do as I continue to grow. However many therapists I can gain over the years, we're always going to have that same type of schedule. So that was my main concern.
So what are some of your biggest challenges you see? I mean, obviously they
Um,
change over the years, I'm sure, because of the whole industry keeps changing. But what are some of the biggest challenges? Going back to the entrepreneur aspect, here you started your own thing. What are some challenges as an entrepreneur of starting your own business that you face?
yeah, I think the biggest one for sure in this industry is insurance, without a doubt. Insurance is the biggest challenge. They make it harder and harder and harder every day to get paid. They make it harder and harder every day to make sure that you have what you need to treat the patient, authorizations or other things. So they are the most challenging thing to work with. Outside of that, I think the bigger challenge is really just growth. I mean, again, the entrepreneur mindset is kind of, you're not trying to stay stagnant. You want to always keep growing and evolving and getting bigger and doing better things. And I never had plans of necessarily having, 15 different locations or anything like that. I guess I, again, was trying to be practical, but also maybe I should have dreamt bigger to think like, oh, I can have 20 locations and this is going to be great. After having done this for so many years now, I think some of the realities set in, and I love what I do. I love the situation I have. I think the challenge again is always trying to grow. It's always trying to gain more patients. It's always trying to maintain those patients. In the world of scheduling, which anybody who does that type of stuff with scheduling clients or scheduling patients or whatever, you understand that part of the challenge is maintaining that. There could be some weeks where I get 8 cancellations, and that's a killer. To lose 8 patients on a schedule in a week it really hurts financially, and it hurts the flow of the week. Some weeks I get, maybe 1 or 2. So that's a very big difference. And I think, maintaining the patient flow, maintaining the growth aspect. And again, with the growth, I'm always hoping to grow, always trying, always planning to grow bigger than where I am now, and always trying to make things a little bit better. The more growth, I have lots and lots of ideas in my head that I've had for many, many years. And again, resources are always a limiting factor, whether it's time resource, money resource, or staff resource. It's those resources that have limited me from trying to do other things that I would like to do to grow and offer more services, be more active in the community, those type of things.
Now go back to the maybe it's a little side side road here, but go back to the whole healthcare industry. So you talked about the challenges of working with health companies and stuff like that, trying to get paid. So sometimes just give people an idea of how far out are some of your payments from some of these insurance companies?
It depends. Usually, we can get paid within like 20 to 30 days from the day we see them. So if I see
Okay.
somebody today, I'll look to hopefully get paid within 20 to 30 days from today. Now that could change based on if there's a letter wrong in their name, the insurance kicks it back and says, nope, it's rejected. You got to resubmit it again. So, I mean, there's lots of that going on all the time. I have a billing company that luckily takes care of most of that for me. So I don't have to sit and worry my day through that. I just have to keep up on them and make sure that everything's still going through at the right time, right pace, and make sure that money is coming in. But that is a big challenge. And then the bigger thing with the insurance too now is a lot of them are getting authorizations. So we didn't used to have that very often. You come to therapy, you have so many visits of therapy, you have certain copay or certain deductible, and that's it. Now it's all, a lot of insurances are going to authorizations where, you ask for authorization for therapy for maybe 8 to 10 visits. Maybe they give you 5, and then after 5, you have to
Wow.
ask again for more. So it's this constant hassle. So it's a lot more inside work of trying to get, authorized visits for patients that make it a lot more challenging. And for some therapists, they're pulling out of certain insurance networks because it's not worth it. You get paid
Yeah.
less and you're doing more work to get the visits in there. So yeah, the insurance world is a very I guess I could say it's a very challenging world.
Yeah,
I
it
could use
is.
more adjectives than that, but it's a very big, challenging world, and I think it's definitely a broken system
Oh
because it
yeah.
doesn't really help the patient, in the end, and it definitely doesn't help the provider. It's not in the provider's favor, the way the healthcare system's set up, because any doctor, any provider, whether it's dentist, whether it's counseling, whether it's therapy services, we all bill a certain amount that we feel is what we call customary and necessary. And it's not that we're charging this extravagant amount. Some offices probably might, but we know that we're based on what the insurance actually allows us to get paid. So
Mhm.
we charge a certain amount, but the insurance only allows us to get paid a certain amount. I'm not sure where they come up with these numbers, but those amounts keep going down lower and lower each year. So we're getting paid less, for
For
what we do
doing
now.
doing more
Yes.
and more and getting paid less and less because of the
Yeah.
insurance
Yeah.
companies. Yeah. And the scary part is that you have people who are not that they've never been trained in physical therapy or in even pharmaceuticals or even medical, and they're making decisions on whether your
Yeah.
patient should or shouldn't go forward. It really is a broken system, and bottom line comes down to money. I mean, it
Yeah.
really is. It's sad. Have you ever thought, and maybe I'm throwing you under the bus here for the asking this, have you ever thought to going more to the non-insurance approach, which I know some doctors and
Mhm.
some practitioners are now saying, you know what? Here's my fee. If you want to put it into your insurance company, that's up to you, but I just can't do that anymore. And I know some medical doctors are starting to do that, saying, you know what? People are willing to pay a little bit more than they would have before, knowing that they can get the care and they don't have the hassles of the insurance companies.
Yeah, interesting you say that, because when I first started my practice, that was actually my idea. Done a lot of research before I started all this. And what I was planning to go into was I was going to take only Medicare, because I thought that was going to be easier for Medicare age patients to not have to deal with anything else. And then was just going to do everybody else was going to be self-pay. And then the idea is that, yeah, they can pay me up front, and then they would, submit it to their insurance to still get paid. They get reimbursed. It's just they had to do the work to do it. So I started out that way, and just starting an office, starting a practice was tough, and it was slow, to get patients in. So I would get calls in, early in, and they're asking, "Oh, do you take this insurance? Do you take that insurance?" I'm like, "No, I don't." And it was explaining the whole system, and a lot of people were saying, "Oh, sorry, I'm going to go somewhere that takes my
Just what?
insurance." So I quickly started to look at that and thought, okay, I got two options here. One is to just keep trying this and see how long it goes before it sticks. Or two, I should probably just start taking insurances and then see how that goes. And I think that was the better choice, because ultimately, I don't know that the world is ready for self-pay physical therapy. I think some practices do it, and they do a good job of doing like more cash-based services. And I definitely have incorporated some of those and want to keep incorporating more cash-based services in here. But it's a very challenging thing I've found, and I know some therapists have done a very good job of doing it, but I don't know how they do it, because again, the patients really don't want to be hassled. They have a hard time when I'm trying to explain what a copay is, or a co-insurance, or a deductible, and a lot of those terms are so foreign to people, and we don't know our benefits. I don't think there's hardly anybody that actually knows what their insurance benefits are. So we have to check them all the time. So we're very familiar with them. And then we're explaining what the benefit is to the patient, and they're still very confused on it. And then even when we explain it and tell them this is what we have to collect because of this or that or this, they still don't always understand it. And a lot of patients really don't care for that. I've had lots of different situations where the patient is almost refusing to pay because they don't trust the information that I have as far as what their insurance is. So I think having them just pay up front would be so much easier. But for the patient, they don't even want to pay a copay sometimes because they think it's too much. So I think it would be a very big challenge. But I do have self-pay patients that come in at times. So there's a pocket of them that I see, but it's definitely not the majority, as much as that would be much nicer to have it that way.
Hmm. Or maybe a combo, like you said,
Yeah.
your insurance will only pay for 5. I'm recommending 10. So let's do the 5, submit the
Yep.
insurance, and then here's the fee to keep going because you really need to have some more, which is
Yeah, there's a lot of
unfortunate,
variations out there
terribly
that people
unfortunate,
work
but
off of. And yeah, I mean, that's definitely something that I've, morphed into over the years, of trying to find other ways to make it more of a combination thing.
so what are some of your future goals and ambitions? So
future goals.
Yeah. So
Um,
what are you thinking? Like,
yeah, so I mean, again, it's always been growth. I mean, I've always wanted to grow more, to have a bigger staff, to supply therapy to more people. I mean, my main goal is really to provide, excellent quality physical therapy care as the individual. I mean, that's always been, my basis for this practice has been the individual, and always looking at the individual, their individual needs, their individual goals. Again, not this cookie cutter approach where, it's just everybody line up because you all have a knee replacement or you all have a knee surgery, and here's the exercise we're going to do together, because everybody's so different. And that's really been the driving force for my practice. And again, I know there's other places out there that are doing a pretty good job of doing that as well. But I think that's what kind of set me apart, was I was trying to develop that culture in here of having that understanding that people that come in here, they know that this is a different place because we're looking at them as the individual. So that's where the growth has been trying to come in, and definitely, obviously, word of mouth is always a great marketing tool that helps pretty well. But I would love to have, I've always wanted to have a second location. Right now, I just have one location. I would love to have a second location. I would really love to just increase staff at this point, is my first primary goal. But overall is to just, be able to help and treat as many people as I can in the community, and hopefully beyond. And I do like to educate a lot out there too. So I've tried to communicate with, some senior centers and some 55 and over communities, and just go out there and just educate them on either therapy or, different aspects of what we do between balance and falls, and, exercise and stretching, and different aspects in that way. So I do really love to educate. And I think that's been a fun thing to be able to incorporate, again, resource wise, time wise. I'd love to do more of that. And that's a bigger goal I have as well, is to try to get out in the community and just educate a little bit better and a little bit more often.
I think it'd be great to see you do some of these classes or something like that as part of the education process, because I think more and more people are looking at, well, what can I do, and they don't know. And it's interesting because I know we've talked about this too, but you go to the gym and people are like, they don't know what they're doing. They just go there and they get on the treadmill, or they try some weights, and I think people, and maybe that's like a second or third or even a fifth step for somebody, but just to come to a stretch class, learning how to just better create better balance in their everyday walk and stuff like that, I think be awesome. Because then I think we give up, and this, let's come back around to the whole term of a mulligan, is I think people give up too quick when they start to feel physically bad.
Hmm.
And I think we see that as we get older, and you probably see it a lot more than I do. But
Yeah, definitely.
you injure yourself or something like that, and then it's all like, well, you know what? I am in my 50s now, so I guess this is how it's going to be. Or you get up out of bed and, oh, my bones ache a little bit now. I guess this is just how it's going to be. And what would you say to somebody like that? I mean,
I love that question, because I use that all the time. And again, I'm older now than I was, so I'm starting to recognize, like, I'm 50 now, so I'm recognizing, like, well, this feels a little different than it did 10 years ago to myself. And also hearing the patients over the years, when I was in my 20s and 30s and heard, 60-year-olds talking about, how they are achy and sore and this and that. And now I'm, a lot closer to that, and you're closer to that than me. But I think what I love about what I do is obviously helping people. I mean, that is my biggest reason for being in this profession. I love helping people. And I think what one of the neatest things about what I do is that, one is I get to encourage them all the time. Now, there's a lot of challenging people to work with. I will say that flat out. And when you work with people, there's lots of different personalities, lots of different challenges. But I have recognized that there's a lot of times where that's exactly what they're thinking. They're like, well, I'm this age, I can't do that anymore. And my biggest question to them all the time is why? Why would you limit yourself? Why are you limiting yourself? I've had a 70-year-old that doesn't want to do something because they think they're too old, or they're in their 70s now and they can't do that. And again, I'll ask them why. Why would you limit yourself just based on age? Don't do that. So it's nice to be able to encourage them, and then also just, I'll get people that'll come in and they'll explain to me, oh, I was trying to do something the other day and I realized I just can't do that. So I said, okay, let's start with a few exercises, and then we're going to try that.
Yeah.
Maybe it was they couldn't go up the steps without a railing, or they couldn't get off the floor. So we'll try that. A lot of the stuff we'll work on. I had a woman recently. She had a knee replacement. She was trying to get back to bowling. So we're doing the best job we could simulating some type of bowling motion that she was doing. And again, she thought, well, I can't get back to that. And I said, well, why not?
Yeah.
So it's always neat to be able to see when they recognize, wait a minute, I can do this. And why was I telling myself I couldn't do this? So the fact of the Mulligan, I think, is kind of ironic because it's happening constantly in my office, because it's constantly people are recognizing I can have a second chance. Like, why did I limit myself? Why am I not thinking I can do something when I can? And again, the age factor like really bothers me. I mean, I've seen so many patients will come in and they'll say, well, my doctor said I was too old for this surgery, or I was too old to do this. And I said, I don't know why they're saying that, because honestly, I hate to throw the age on there. You get these things all the time where it's like, well, you're too young to have that condition. Well, I have this condition. I don't know what you want me to do about it. Yeah, maybe I'm too young, but I have it. Or, you're too old now. You can't do this or that. So I hate putting the age limit on that, because again, my mindset's, age is a number, and it's a mindset. It's a total mindset, because you can overcome so many things, and just, have a young mind and think through it in a young way, and not think that you have to do anything else based on age. So, I love being able to help people recognize that they do have second chances, and they can do things over again that they weren't able to do, because now, one, we've gotten them a little bit better that they can do it. And honestly, the bigger thing is the confidence. A lot of people lack confidence, and having people understand that, like, you know what, you can go to your grandson's soccer game because you can walk across that grass now. You couldn't do it before, so you weren't going, but now you can. You can go upstairs to visit your daughter now because she's got steps and you don't. You now know how to do the steps. You can do it. So go do it. So I think some people look at me as, being a little tough on them. And I will admit I'm kind of tough on my patients, but it's a tough love, and it's tough because I know that they're going to get results. Yeah. And if I sit back and I just give into, how their personality is, I know they're not going to get the results they need. So they definitely need the push, and I'm definitely the one that will push them, for sure. So
that's cool. You're more than just a physical therapist. You're a coach in the corner.
Yeah, in a lot of ways. Yeah,
and that age thing, that hits at all different ages. And I know I shared this story. I was in this store, and this guy's looking at vitamins, and which is an undaunting task. That's why I'm so glad we work for the company we do. Takes all the guesswork out. But he's looking to try to figure out vitamins, and he's like, so I just asked him simply, "What are you looking for?" And he's like, "Well, I don't know. I need something for these achy bones, and I'm just really struggling, getting out of bed." And he goes, I'm just over 40 now, and I'm looking at this guy. Okay, I'm hitting my 60 this year, and I'm like, are you like, I didn't say this, but are you kidding me? Like, seriously, are you kidding me? But that mindset can hit in our 30s and our 40s and our 50s or 60s, and we got to break that. We got to break that. I want to be in the gym at 90 working out, and I just think, why not? Right. And I realize, our bodies are not meant, they're not going to last forever and all that kind of stuff. But if we can get the most out of them, and that movement and everything else is so critical to that. So, Brian, I appreciate what you do and working with patients the way you do. And I hope some hear this out there that are questioning, should I go for physical therapy? And it's almost like, even if you're struggling with something, like some kind of movement in any way, shape, or form, go look up a physical therapist. And even if your insurance won't cover it, go in and say, hey, can you just work with me for, 5 or 6 sessions to work through some things, teach me some exercises so I can get this to the next level. Because don't struggle, take that mulligan, take a second chance, and start doing things you couldn't do before, and now maybe you can start doing again, right?
Yeah. We know everyone can use a second chance or a do-over. So take a mulligan and try again. Thanks so much for joining with us today. Make sure you follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and YouTube. Like, click, and subscribe.